Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to do a cheeky little range review for the Sylvaneth, which is a range that I actually have quite a lot of experience with, weirdly. You may not know this, but I do have a kind of Sylvaneth army that I'm working on. It's kind of on the back burner right now because I've got a big project coming in that we'll talk about some other time. And admittedly, this is not the range review that I was going to do today. In fact, I have already recorded the Chaos Demons range review, but for some reason it's really mangled in the second half of it, and I'm attempting to fix it, but it's making me lose the will to live. So I'm taking a break from that to do this, just to tide us over. But as I say, I've actually got a fair bit of experience with the models, with the range itself, excluding Allario, which we're starting on. Get that out of the way since I haven't messed with her. That sounds weird. Anyway, so this we're going to start with is Allario. This is Allario, and by far my favourite part of this model is the wings. The wings look absolutely fantastic. I like the fact that the structure of them is made out of wood, and then you've got the long leaves on the outside where you'd find the longer feathers, and the shorter leaves on the inside, like the smaller ones. They're so well structured. It looks really, really cool. And also, when you follow one of the wings down, you can see the cloak that she's wearing, or like the back of the dress thing that she's got on. Cloak? Dress? Whatever it is. The way that it's like fading away into multiple other leaves. There's a really nice kind of flow going on there that I really, really enjoy. The massive beetle, I do quite like. The only thing I'm not sure about is the fact that it's got like an actual little weirdly like, not a human face, that's the wrong word. There's like a specific word for when an animal has a face that is like more human than it should be. I don't know what the word is. I'm sure it exists, but I don't know. It's like, it looks a bit too not natural. Which I know is a weird thing to say because it's a giant beetle and it's got stuff growing out of it, like mushrooms and small trees, but still, it looks a little bit out of place to me compared to how actually kind of, for what she is, which is a woman with plant wings and a plant arm, like, she looks more realistic than the beetle does. There's like a weird mixing of styles there that doesn't quite work for me, but that's the only bit that doesn't. The rest of it looks absolutely fantastic. Like the way the branches and the roots are growing out of the carapace for it looks amazing. The kind of integration of all the little charms that they have, pretty much all the Sylvaneth stuff have got these little charms hanging from them. I have to admit, I don't know the lore reason behind that. I've got an army of them, but I don't actually. All I did was just build them because they look cool. And mine are slightly different, obviously. You wouldn't expect anything else, would you? But I like the way it's integrated by them having been tied on and not just, like, stuck on in places. That's I think, kind of important. It's just a very visually impressive model. And I have to admit, the actual, like, sculpt for Allario, she's quite, like, muscular. There's a lot of detail that's gone into the cloth that she's wearing, which is really nice. And she has a very kind of imposing feel to her. It's helped by, admittedly, I think it's helped a lot in this particular paint job by her eyes just being like blank white, which looks really cool. But she is just a very commanding figure. There's a really nice silhouette to her that works really well. She does have the 1 foot up, like a hero or general pose, but the context is a bit different here, which I think sets it apart slightly. All the little details on here just look amazing. Also, very well sculpted face on her. I think she's got a really, really well sculpted face. Things like the plants kind of growing out of her legs look really good as well. I would maybe be tempted to do a little bit of messing with like texture paint or green stuff just to integrate that a little bit more. But, I mean, it looks absolutely fine. That's just something that I would mess with because I can't help myself more than any other reason. And that kind of wooden symbol on the carapace of the beetle works really, really well. It's just something about the face just doesn't quite do it for me. But the rest of it looks really, really good. I also feel if you really wanted to, you could do some fun kind of almost galaxy effects with the carapace. That would look quite cool. Overall, though, it's just a really, really good model and something that at some point I'd really like to do something with. Next up, we have Dryads Hammerdreth, and this is an absolutely solid model. I love this model. I've put one of these together myself. Admittedly, the the woman's torso and head has been replaced with a skeleton and multiple other heads. But, you know, close enough. The rest of it is relatively untouched, sort of. I left off the insects because mine doesn't have any insects. It's got corpses hanging from it because, as you do. But it's quite a freaky model, to be fair. The fact that you've got this really kind of thin kind of midriff on it, but then it flares out at the bottom, and you've got this kind of bulky wooden section at the chest, looks really good and very unnatural. I do like the honeycomb effect on the legs and the arms, and especially around the shoulders it works well. But for me, the shoulders, if anything, look a little too pauldron-like. But I understand that that's why they're there. So it's a weird thing of, I know why you've done it, it's just not quite how I personally would have done it. I would have preferred more kind of knotted wooden stuff, and I did think about doing that for mine, but that requires green stuff skill that I simply don't have. So that's that's why I did not do it. The little kind of honeycomb arse is something that I go back and forward on. I think it works because it has that kind of effect of looking like a bit of a stinger, which works with the overall context of the model. But at the same time, it does also look like a bustle. It's one of those, how do I even describe this? I'm assuming why would most of you know what a bustle is? Why do I know what a bustle is? It's that massive, cushion pillow thing that goes under a woman's dress in I was going to say the 1600s. I don't actually know when bustles were used, but it was definitely a thing to make them look like they had a larger backside. I assume that's the reason. This is a weird range review. I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, again, there's lots of nice little details on here. Her face is absolutely horrific and terrifying. It really is. What the hell? The massive split where the mouth is. There's a very Medusa-esque feel to the hair as well. But it all being branches and vines works really nicely. But it's a pretty scary looking face, which kind of fits. I mean, really, the Sylvaneth are a lot more nightmarish and scary than I think a lot of people give them credit for. They can be absolutely horrifying. But yeah, it's a really nice model, and the wood around the legs and especially on the claws, it takes dry brushing so well. It's really nice to paint, even with all the added crap I stuck on mine. It was really fun to paint because you can get some really nice colours and textures out of it. Which, funnily enough, exactly the same experience for the Tree Lord Ancient, or Durthu, or Tree Lord Ancient with the sword, or what. There's a couple of different builds for this. I have to admit, the one part of this model that just does not quite work for me is the feet. It kind of looks like they're wearing heels. Now, I'm not really sure what the specific idea was behind this, but it looks a bit weird. I can kind of see if they were going for a root kind of thing. So it's like roots on the feet, but it doesn't really look like roots. It just looks like they're wearing heels, which is an odd decision to make. And when I base mine, I'm going to be building up the basing material around the feet so that it doesn't look like that, because it just looks strange to me. It just looks really strange, which is a shame, because otherwise everything else about the model is really nice. Again, you've got that really nice textured wood. There's a lot of cracks and stuff in it, which is really fun to pick out. The actual weapons themselves are really cool on these. They're really cool. That's just an amazing looking sword. It's one of those things where it is obviously very kind of fantastical, and whereas the rest of the model clearly denotes kind of natural growth, admittedly moving about in a very unnatural way, the sword is very much it's very much designed and made to look fancy and special, which, I don't know, it gives a nice contrast, I think. I will say right now that all the skulls that you get on Durthu are an absolute nightmare to paint. Terrible. I still haven't painted all the ones on mine, and it's taken ages. There's so many in the kind of branch area around the back of the head. There are more there than you think there are. You might look at that and go, oh, there's not that many. No, there's way more. There's way more, and they're in multiple layers. You'd be shocked and amazed at just how many damn skulls there are on Durthu especially, which is the version that I built, but then gave him a massive axe made out of a gate, because, why would you not? And, yeah, other than the absolute nightmare of painting those bits, it is really nice. I have to admit, I steered clear of all these little critters, although I do like the little critters. The owl's a bit weird, having the 3-eye thing, but it's fine. The claws especially, again, really nice for dry brushing. They come out really well. Plus, this kit is an absolute gold mine for antlers and stuff. So I literally took parts of this kit. I'm just trying to see if I can see the actual antlers I used. I think it might have been on this sprue. There's a set of... Yeah, there they are. Yeah, so kind of top screen right. Well, not top right, but on that section, that kind of upper right quarter, the antlers from there, they look great on the Vargsky from Cursed City. Or was it even those? It might not have been those. It might have been the ones on the middle, actually. There's just so many antlers to choose from. You've got the really kind of spiky tree ones on this sprue. Spiky. And then you've got a couple of different variations on this sprue. I mean, yeah, it's just such a good kit for lots of different pieces. You end up with a lot left over because there's like 3 different build options. You've got the one with the whip, with those kind of horns. You've got the Durthu version with the sword. You've got the other one with that set of antlers and the big staff. It's great for just random little plant bits being left over. It is, I have to say though, an absolute pain in the arse to put together. The actual assembly experience I would rate as like a 5 out of 10. Questionable as to whether I'd want to do it again, but I really like the model, so it might be worth the pain. Also, if you want a giant beard for something, this has got you covered. Big long plaited beard, you could use that on a... I was going to say a dwarf. What dwarf would be tall enough to take advantage of that? Moving swiftly on before I continue to lose my mind, the Warsong Revenant we've talked about quite a lot recently. We won't go into too much detail on this one because also I haven't put this one together yet. I do have it. I did manage to get hold of one. Someone very kindly sent it to me, which I'm looking forward to doing fun things with this because I've got some other pieces on the way. So my Warsong Revenant is going to look distinctly more undead than this one, funnily enough. But I do like this model a lot. Still not a fan of the beetle on the top. Just a personal preference thing. None of my Sylvaneth have got any of the little critters. They've all been snipped off or just not included. Just because it doesn't suit the theme of the army. The big long kind of viney bits at the bottom that are reaching out like tentacles, those are a really nice touch that I didn't really pick up on that much when I first looked at this model, but it looks really cool. It really does. I like it a lot. Also gives it kind of like an increased sense of movement as well. It's like as he floats, the tentacles are kind of moving with him, which is, I don't know, it looks pretty neat. There's just a lot of nice little details on here again. The sword being sheathed behind the back is a nice touch. Yeah, it's solid. It's pretty solid. It's a good model. And it does look good when it's like all put in the right kind of background and stuff. Yeah, I do like that a lot. Also, weirdly, this seems like one of those models that no matter what you do, it's going to be an absolute pain to package efficiently. Like this is a full like 3 sprue model, and a lot of it is down to how awkward the cloak is. And you got got multiple really big awkward parts. Although I will say I much prefer the approach they've done, where they haven't tried to ram everything in and make things like fiddly small. Most of this is like really solid chunks of plastic, which is quite nice. Like they haven't separated the big crest behind him. They haven't like made it so that the tentacles have to be stuck together. Vines stuck together like halfway along them. I prefer this method by far because it just means less faffing around. Although why you need to put the end of the little trumpet on instead of just having that all be one part? I'm guessing it's because there's an actual cavity in there so that it looks like an actual trumpet when you look down into it. But still, it's just asking to either not fit properly or get lost that tiny bit down there. Not that I lose bits constantly or anything. Oh wait, yes I do. So, we also have the Kernel Hunters, which I have recently put a couple of these together. Again, a little bit different. Although not a huge amount of change to these with mine. I should have taken a picture of them before I put them in storage. I've put them away to make space for the other thing that's on the way. All I did to change them is they've got skulls like packed into the chest, and the heads are obviously skulls as well, but they've got 2 skulls each because they've got quite big heads, these. The little quiver caterpillars, not my style at all. Don't like it. It's too cutesy, but then again, like I say, my force is not standard Sylvaneth, so although admittedly I don't know if I'd include them if they were. I honestly don't think I would, because I really like the kind of like wooden armoured feel of them, and the little cutesy insects don't quite match up to me with the almost kind of there's almost like a demonic feel to some of these things. There's almost like a death mask feel to the faces. You've got all these kind of leaves and antlers and kind of like branch sections that are sprouting out of them that, with like the right lighting and the right silhouette, kind of look a bit like horns or flames. There's something very otherworldly and, I would suggest intentionally, a little bit scary about them, which I really like, but the little critters, they take away from that for my money, so I don't know if I'd have left them on even if I was leaving them standard. I will say these I actually quite enjoyed putting together. They were like a smaller version of the Tree Man, but they were not quite as bad. The contact points felt a bit more reliable on these, which is nice because they were not good on the big lad. Also, nice range weapons, and again, quite a few spares you get from these as well. There's quite a lot of kind of spare weapons and stuff you get off these kits, which is nice. Now, onto the mainstay. It's these are like some of my favourites by far of from Age of Sigmar in general. So you've got the Tree Revenants and the Spike Revenants, and these have made up the bulk of my Sylvaneth so far, and I really like this kit. It's a really nice, simple kit, not a huge amount to do. Not particularly complicated. Everything sits together really nicely. You don't have to mess around kind of getting the right placement for things. Everything just fits together, even when you're messing about with them. So the way that I did mine is where you can see the kind of the elfy bits sticking out of the wood bits. Those are skeletons on mine. So I got the Death Rattle skeleton box before it was changed to the new one, which in a way I'm sad to see the old one go, because the old one, well, I was stupid and I only got one box of those before they went out of stock, so I've only got one box to make quite a few more of these, which is going to be a problem. But even with just like cutting the skeleton ribcage in half and then wedging it in, surprisingly easy to convert these. They can take a bit of messing with pretty easily, and they have all the things that I like about the larger models, like the obviously, like, the wood textures are a lot more kind of shrunk down. You don't have as much in the way of like fine cracks and details on these, but they still take the same method of painting really, really nicely. They have a nice kind of definition to them, especially compared to the Dryads, which I'm fine. We'll get onto those in a minute. But yeah, the Spike Revenants and the Tree Revenants, they're just really nice to put together. It's a very satisfying kit, and the end result always looks really good. And again, you're looking at a kit where, because you've got the double build options, you've got a bunch of spares afterwards, like loads of spares, spare heads. You've got spare weapons, things like a banner and a little harp as well. There's a lot of spares. There's a lot of spares on here, lots of different weapons and stuff. It's a really nice kit. Now, following on from then, we've got the Dryads, and I have to admit, the Dryads for me are not of the same, what word am I thinking of? Not that, quality, idiot. For my money, the Dryads are not of the same quality as the rest of the range. Like, they look okay, they look fine, I don't think they look bad, they have a lot of personality of their own. They're not like a rubbish-looking set of models by any stretch, but I don't know. There's just something about them that they feel less defined. They feel nowhere near as fun to put together, to be honest. They're just not enjoyable to assemble, I've found. Also, quite a bit harder to do stuff with. I mean, short of just doing a straight head swap so that you've got skulls instead of faces, there's not a huge amount I've been able to work out to do with them. I've done a few standard, and I've been trying to wait for inspiration to strike for the rest. They are very good for, like, as a source for other bits, though, to be honest. That's largely what I've ended up using them for, because you've got all these like weird, creepy branch arms. You've got the sections that stick out the top of the bodies are all their own pieces. There's no picture of the sprue on here, unfortunately, but like all those bits that are sticking up out of the body and kind of arcing over the head, those are all separate. There's lots and lots of stuff in this box to include on other models to make them busier, to give them more in the way of weird growths and outcroppings and stuff. For that, they're really, really good. To actually put them together, I've not enjoyed it very much, and it's a bit of a challenge so far to try and make them fit in as well as I'd like with the rest of the force. Because just doing Revenants, it doesn't feel like it's really that much of an option, because those take quite a while to mess about with. But on the other hand, the Dryads, yeah, they're fine, but they're not like high up on my list of favourites, to be honest. They're okay, they're passable. They look all right. They look a little bit dated. Some of the detail is not quite as good as on some of the newer models, and yeah, the assembly experience just isn't all that fun, really. Now I'm afraid we're getting into things that I haven't put together. I've not put together an Arch Revenant. I made my own, but it looks nothing like this because it's based off a Stormcast Eternal. Don't ask. It's still a decent model. It looks okay. It looks all right. There is something about the head that I'm not sure about. The horns just feel way too large. I think it throws off the silhouette of the model a little bit. Otherwise, I quite like it. The shield is a bit weird. The shield feels weird to me, and it has done since day one, purely because when you look at the rest of the range, there is no such thing. Like, no other option exists in terms of shields. Like with the Kernel Hunters, you've got swords, you've got bows, you've got whatever the hell those are. With everything else, there is just no option for a shield. And then this guy's got one. And honestly, it throws me off slightly because it doesn't look quite as in keeping with the rest of the stuff. But that being said, it's not a bad model. It's just, yeah, it's just a couple of little things. The horns are a little bit too big. The shield looks odd because nothing else really has it. I would have much preferred the wings, in fairness, to be closer to Allario's. I don't mind the kind of insect wings, although if I were to build this myself, the chances are I would get rid of the insect and just have him coming straight out of his back. I'm almost positive there'll be an actual reason for it being a little insect as opposed to them coming out of him, but that's just what I do. And it looks to be pretty simple to put together, nothing too complicated, but yeah, it's something that I would probably mess with significantly. I mean, I would have to make it fit with the rest of the army, obviously, but yeah, it's okay. It's all right, but a couple of things I'm just not sure about with that. The Sylvaneth Branch Witch, I actually quite like this. It kind of seems to... It feels like it bridges the gap a little bit between the Dryads and the Revenants. There's a bit more kind of Revenant feel to the weapon, to the like growths coming out of the top of the head. The rest of it is, very, very Dryad, which makes sense. But I also don't mind the caterpillar. The caterpillar I'm okay with on this one. It's alright. I'll let you live. It's fine. For real creepy, though, I really like the Branch Wraith. I really like this model. This is a creepy model. The fact that she's made entirely of wood, but still has that kind of like humanoid feel to the body. It's almost as though the bark is just closing around her and locking her away. It's properly creepy. I really like this. Obviously, this is an older one as well, I believe. But yeah, this is a cool model. This is a really cool model. It's unsettling in all the right ways. Very scary face as well. Properly scary face. I believe this is a resin. I'm 90% sure. Yeah, fine cast Branch Wraith miniature. Ugh, fine. But yeah, she looks good. She looks scary. She looks properly scary. And then we have the endless spells. The weird tree, I quite like. Don't like the gap in the tree. The gap in the tree just looks suggestive. I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm just not a fan of the gap in that tree. The worm is it's so I don't know. Again, it kind of plays more into the sort of cutesy critter feel of things, which are, you can already tell I'm not a huge fan of that side of things. It looks fine. There's, detail-wise, you could do quite a bit in terms of the kind of segmented carapace on the back of it. Could do a lot of fun stuff with that. So it's not bad. It's not bad at all. Just Again, not quite to my personal taste. The creepy flying tree is... It is fine, it's just why have that gap be in the bark? Why have it be that shape? Why did you do that? Also, they've not put it together great, have they? Look at that. You can see the gap in the middle. Come on. What is this amateur hour nonsense? Get a bit of plastic glue, give it a good squeeze so that gap's sealed, and just be patient. Don't just do that. Not on. The skeleton's wrapped up in the roots. 100% love that. Absolutely fitting. Brilliant. And we got the little swarm of insects, which is fine. It's alright. It's a little bit... The definition feels a bit strange on this one. It almost looks more like water, although that could be down to colour choice more than anything else. It looks alright. It's fine. I have to say, though, of all of it, it's got to be these guys for me. The Spike Revenants, they just have it all. They're fun to put together. They're fun to mess with. Fun to convert. They look great with a bit of dry brushing. They don't take a huge amount of paint to make look decent. Yeah, they're just an all-round, fun, enjoyable kit. I think probably my favourite out of the entire range. They are pretty damn solid. So there you go. That was the range review for the Sylvaneth from Age of Sigmar. Have you put any of these together? Have you had any ideas for doing things slightly different with them? Do you have a massive Sylvaneth army on the go? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know what your favourite is out of this range. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video subscribe, all that stuff. Click it if you like. Don't click it if you don't want to. There's an affiliate link in the description for Element Games, which you can use to support the channel if you'd like. I leave it in your capable hands. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.